Well, good morning, Blue Troopers, and if things look a lot like they did last night, it's because I am making this as a separate video. I'm making a couple of videos at one time for some time release. Something interesting happened to me on the drive home the other day. A plastic bag, just like the regular plastic bags you get at the grocery store, apparently flew out of somebody's window. I guess I'm driving down the road, I see it coming my way. I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm not going to swerve into traffic to miss it. And it does this. It hooked onto my rear view mirror. So at 70 miles an hour, I had to roll the window down, grab it, and I didn't want to litter, so I pulled it inside, threw it away when I made a pit stop. That has nothing to do with building models. I just thought that was kind of a funny haha. So, on to building models. Last night, I did make some forward progress on getting the Atlas started with the painting, and I got one thin coat of gloss aluminum on it, and I noticed it didn't go on very smoothly. Because the model's gray, I didn't prime it, and I'm starting to think maybe I should go ahead and put a primer coat over that and then go ahead and hit it with the silver on top of that, because the raw plastic, it didn't adhere to very well. You know, a lot of times primer and surfacer, their real function isn't just to blot out and neutralize whatever color, but it's also to change the texture so paint can adhere better. And I did not expect such an uneven coat. So I think I'm just going to let that harden out, maybe shoot it with some primer and then a few more coats over it. See how that pans out, I'll let you know. Also, I dragged out the Mercury Redstone, also from Horizon Models, and it has a lot more detail to it, as I figured it would, than most of the other kits. It's got some photo etch. You have the option for 3 different ways to mark it as one of the test beds or one of the first 2, either Shepherd or Grissom. A lot of options there. So I'll figure out what I want to do exactly with it later. This one's going to take a little more prior planning. The difference between Shepherd and Grissom ships was virtually nil, but there were a few little differences. Probably the biggest of which is that Shepherd had the round porthole window, is the only one that did. The rest all had that trapezoidal window, or kind of, well, actually more of a truncated cone window. And supposedly, I've heard from a couple of sources that Shepherd couldn't really see anything out of the porthole the way he was facing, and that when he tried to open the periscope, some sources claimed that he had trouble with I think it was a sunscreen or something, got jammed halfway. Haven't been able to verify that, but he actually didn't really get to see much while he was up there. Of course, Grissom had a smoother mission up until the capsule sank. And yes, they finally recovered the capsule, and they did determine that it shorted out and fired on its own. He did not do it. Wally Sherrod proved that when the test vehicle and hit the plunger that was supposed to fire it, it left a big bruise on his wrist because it was heavily spring loaded, and Grissom didn't have any such bruise, and there's just no way that was going to happen without leaving a mark. But that as it was, I'll pick one of these 2 to mark it up as. I could mark it up as the unmanned test vehicle, but somehow unmanned stuff just doesn't seem to have quite the same pizzazz as having a human in there. Not sure what it is, but well, that's for me anyway. I also got to work on the A7. I buffed out the nose and putting more of the surfacer on it, and it seems to be smoothing out now. The only problem with the 2 sides of that model coming together the way they do all the way through the nose is the nose of the A7 really sticks out in front at you, as does the nose on most aircraft. And most jets, of course, they have a one-piece cone that goes over. But the nose cone on this one is molded into the halves of the model, so you have a big seam down the middle. If you want to have any kind of presentable model, that's got to be smoothed out. So that's where we are with the A7 and with the Atlas, getting ready to get started on the Redstone, but I have all these Vietnam builds I need to finish also. And by the way, quick side note, an argument could be made, in fact, one has already been submitted, that for the Vietnam build, if you do the F-14, the F-15, or the F-16 in test colors, like the YF-14, the YF-15, so on, that would possibly count for the Vietnam. The one I've got, I'm going to go ahead and include, because these planes did actually fly in prototype stage before the Saigon fell and the war was really completely over. So not exactly what we had in mind, but since those airplanes were designed and built because of lessons learned in Vietnam, and with the intent of eventually going over and fighting if they had to, if you're doing the real early prototype model, I think that'd count as part of the Vietnam build. What say ye? So guys, that's where we're at for this morning. I hope you're enjoying your coffee and your breakfast. I got to hit the road here in a few hours, so take care of yourselves, and as always, model on. But this time it was actually timber. Everything's okay. They stayed closed, no damage. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along, move along.